Hey, hi, hello, how are you? Hope you're okay, because I'm ready for another read along. Are you ready for another read along of Wind in the Willows? Written, of course, by Kenneth Grahame. And as you know by now, and if you don't, I don't know what you've been doing, I'm reading the Wordsworth edition. Tonight, we start chapter 11, the penultimate chapter of the story. Are you ready? The rat put out a neat little brown paw, gripped Toad firmly by the scruff of the neck, and gave a hoist and a pull, and the waterlogged Toad came up slowly but surely over the edge of the hole, till at last he stood safe and sound in the hall, streaked with mud and weed to be sure, and with the water streaming off him, but happy and high-spirited as of old now that he found himself once more in the house of a friend, and dodgings and evasions were over, and he could lay aside a disguise that was unworthy of his position and wanted such a lot of living up to. "Oh, Ratty," he cried, "I've been through such times since I last saw you, you can't think. Such trials, such sufferings, and all so nobly borne. Then such escapes, such disguises, subterfuges, and all so cleverly planned and carried out. Been in prison, got out of it, of course, but been thrown in a canal, swam ashore, stole a horse, sold him for a large sum of money, humbugged everyone, made them all do exactly what I wanted. Oh, I am a smart toad and no mistake. What do you think my last exploit was? Just hold on till I tell you." "Toad," Water Rat gravely and firmly said, "you need to go off upstairs at once. Take off that old cotton rag that looks as if it might formerly have belonged to some washerwoman. Clean yourself thoroughly and put on some of my clothes. Then try and come down looking like a gentleman, if you can. For a more shabby, bedraggled, disreputable looking object than you are, I've never set my eyes on in my whole life. Now, stop swaggering and arguing, and be off. I'll have something to say to you later." Toad was at first inclined to stop and do some talking back at him. He had had enough of being ordered about when he was in prison, and here was the thing being begun all over again, and by a rat too. However, he caught sight of himself in the looking-glass over the hat-stand, with the rusty black bonnet perched rakishly over one eye, and he changed his mind and went very quickly and humbly upstairs to the rat's dressing-room. There he had a thorough wash and brush-up, changed his clothes, and stood for a long time before the glass, contemplating himself with pride and pleasure, and thinking what utter idiots all the people must have been to have ever mistaken him for one moment for a washerwoman. By the time he came down again, luncheon was on the table, and very glad Toad was to see it, for he had been through some trying experiences, and had taken much hard exercise since the excellent breakfast provided for him earlier on. While they ate, Toad told the rat all his adventures, dwelling chiefly on his own cleverness and presence of mind in emergencies, and cunning in tight places, and rather making out that he had been having a really gay and highly coloured experience. But the more he talked and boasted, the more grave and silent Rat became. When at last Toad had talked himself to a standstill, there was silence for a while, and then the rat said, "Now, Toady, I don't want to give you pain after all you've been through already, but seriously, don't you see what an awful ass you've been making of yourself? On your own admission, you have been handcuffed, imprisoned, starved, chased, terrified out of your life, insulted, jeered at, and ignominiously flung into the water. By a woman, too. Where's the amusement in that? Where does the fun come in? And all because you must needs go and steal a motor car. You know that you've never had anything but trouble from motor cars from the moment you first set eyes on one. But if you will be fixed on them, as you generally are 5 minutes after you've started, why steal them? If you think it's exciting, be a bankrupt for a change. If you've set your mind on it, why choose to be a convict? When are you going to be sensible and think of your friends and try to be a credit to them? Do you suppose it's any pleasure to me, for instance, to hear animals saying as I go about that I'm the chap that keeps company with jailbirds? Now, it was a very comforting point in Toad's character that he was a thoroughly good-hearted animal, and never minded being jawed by those who were his real friends. And even when most set upon a thing, he was always able to see the other side of the question. So, although, while the rat was talking so seriously, he kept saying to himself mutinously, "But it was fun, though. Awful fun," and making strange suppressed noises inside him like and and other sounds resembling stifled snorts or the opening of soda water bottles. Yet when the rat had quite finished, he breathed a deep sigh and said very nicely and humbly, "Quite right, Ratty. How sound you always are. Yes, I've been a conceited old ass. I can quite see that. But now I'm going to be a good toad, and I'm not going to do it any more. As for motor cars, I've not been at all so keen about them since my last ducking in that river of yours. The fact is, whilst I was hanging on the edge of your hole and getting my breath, I had a sudden idea. A really brilliant idea connected with motorboats. There. Don't take on old chap and stamp and upset things. It was only an idea, and we won't talk about it any more now. We'll have our coffee and a smoke and a quiet chat, and then I'm going to stroll gently down to Toad Hall and get into clothes of my own and set things going again on the old lines. I've had enough of adventures. I shall lead a quiet, steady, respectable life, pottering about my property and improving it and doing a little landscape gardening at times. There will always be a bit of dinner for my friends when they come to see me, and I shall just keep a pony chaise to jog about in the country in, just as I used to in the old days, before I got restless and wanted to do things." "Stroll gently down to Toad Hall?" cried the rat. "What are you talking about, Toad? Do you mean to say you haven't heard?" "Heard what?" said the toad, turning rather pale. "Go on, Ratty. Quick. Don't spare me. What haven't I heard?" "Do you mean to tell me," shouted the rat, thumping his little fist upon the table, "that you've heard nothing about stoats and weasels?" "What, the wild wooders?" cried Toad, trembling in every limb. "No, not a word. What have they been doing?" "And how they've taken Toad Hall?" continued the rat. Toad leaned his elbows on the table and his chin on his paws, and a large tear welled up and each of his eyes overflowed and splashed on the table. "Go on, Ratty," he murmured presently. "Tell me all. The worst is over. I'm an animal again. I can bear it." "When you got into that trouble of yours," said the rat, slowly and impressively, "I mean, when you disappeared from society for a time over that misunderstanding about a machine, you know," Toad merely nodded. "Well, it was a good deal talked about down here, naturally. Not only along the riverside, but even in the wild wood. Animals took sides, as always happens. The river bankers, they stuck up for you and said that you'd been infamously treated. And there was no justice to be had in land nowadays anyway. But the wild wood animals said hard things and served you right, and it was time this sort of thing was stopped. And they got very cocky, and they went about saying you were done for this time, that you would never come back. Never ever." Toad nodded once more, keeping silence. "That's the sort of little beasts they are," the rat went on. "But Mole and Badger, they stuck out through thick and thin that you would come back again soon somehow. They didn't know exactly how, but Somehow. Toad began to sit up in his chair again and to smirk a little. They argued from history, continued the rat. They said that no criminal laws had ever been known to prevail against cheek and plausibility such as yours, combined with the power of a long purse. So they arranged to move your things into Toad Hall and sleep there, and keep it aired and have it all ready for you when you turned up. They didn't guess what was going to happen, of course. Still, they had their suspicions of the wildwood animals. Now I come to the most painful and tragic part of the story. One dark night, and it was a very dark night, and blowing hard too, and raining simply cats and dogs, a band of weasels, armed to the teeth, crept silently up the carriage drive to the front entrance. Simultaneously, a body of desperate ferrets, advancing through the kitchen garden, possessed themselves of the backyard and offices, while a company of skirmishing stoats, who stuck at nothing, occupied the conservatory and the billiard room, and held the French windows opening to the lawn. The mole and the badger were sitting by the fire in the smoking room, telling stories and suspecting nothing, for it wasn't a night for any animals to be out in when those bloodthirsty villains broke down the doors and rushed in upon them from every side. They made the best fight they could, but what was the good? They were unarmed and taken by surprise, and what can two animals do against hundreds? They took and beat them severely with sticks, those two poor faithful creatures, and they turned them out into the cold and the wet with many insulting and uncalled for remarks. Here, the unfeeling Toad broke into a snigger, and then pulled himself together and tried to look particularly solemn. And the wild wooders have been living in Toad Hall ever since, continued the rat, and going on simply anyhow, lying in bed half the day and breakfast at all hours. And the place, oh, it's such a mess, I'm told. It's not fit to be seen, eating your grub and drinking your drink and making bad jokes about you and singing vulgar songs about prisons and magistrates and policemen. Horrid personal songs with no humour in them. And they're telling the tradespeople and everybody that they've come to stay for good. "Oh, have they?" said Toad, getting up and seizing a stick. "Well, I'll jolly well see to that." "It's no good, Toad," called the rat after him. "You'd better come back and sit down. You're only going to get yourself in trouble." But the Toad was off, and there was no holding him. He marched rapidly down the road, his stick over his shoulder, fuming and muttering to himself in anger till he got near his front gate, when suddenly there popped up from behind the palings a long yellow ferret with a gun. "Who goes there?" said the ferret sharply. "Stuff and nonsense," said the Toad very angrily. "What do you mean by talking like that to me? Come out here at once, or I'll—" The ferret never said a word, but he brought his gun up to his shoulder. Toad prudently dropped flat in the road, and a bullet whistled over his head. Excuse me. This startled Toad, made him scramble to his feet and scampered off down the road as hard as he could, and as he ran he heard the ferret laughing, and other horrid thin little laughs taking it up and carrying on the sound. He went back very crestfallen and told the water rat. "What did I tell you?" said the rat. "It's no good. They've got sentries posted, and they're all armed. You must just wait." Still, Toad was not inclined to give it all in at once, so he got out the boat and set off rowing up the river to where the front garden of Toad Hall came down to the waterside. Arriving within sight of his old home, he rested on his oars and surveyed the land cautiously. All seemed very peaceful and deserted and quiet. He could see the whole front of Toad Hall glowing in the evening sunshine, the pigeons settling by twos and threes along the straight line of the roof, the garden a blaze of flowers, the creek that led up to the boathouse, the little wooden bridge that crossed it, all tranquil, uninhabited, apparently waiting for his return. He'd try the boathouse first. Very warily, he paddled up the mouth of the creek and was just passing under the bridge when a great stone dropped dropped from above, smashed through the bottom of the boat. It filled and sank, and Toad found himself struggling in deep water. Looking up, he saw two stoats leaning over the parapet of the bridge and watching him with great glee. "It'll be your head next time, Toady," they called out to him. The indignant Toad swam to shore while the stoats laughed and laughed, supporting each other and laughed again, till they nearly had two fits. That is, one for each, of course. The Toad retraced his weary way on foot and related his disappointing experiences to the Water Rat once more. "Well, what did I tell you?" said the Rat very crossly. "And now look here, see what you've been and done. Lost me my boat that I was so fond of. That's what you've done, and simply ruined that nice suit of clothes that I lent you. Really, Toad, of all the trying animals, I wonder that you managed to keep any friends at all." The Toad saw at once how wrongly and foolishly he had acted. He admitted his errors and wrong-headedness and made a full apology to Rat for losing his boat and spoiling his clothes. And he wound up by saying, with that frank self-surrender which always disarmed his friend's criticism and won them back to his side, "Ratty, I see that I've been a headstrong and wilful Toad. Henceforth, believe me, I will be humble and submissive and will take no action without your kind advice and full approval." "If that really is so," said the good-natured Rat, already appeased, "then my advice to you is, considering the lateness of the hour, to sit down and have your supper, which will be on the table in a minute, and be very patient. For I am convinced that we can do nothing until we have seen the Mole and the Badger and heard their latest news and held conference and taken their advice in this very difficult matter." "Oh, yes, of course, Mole and Badger," said Toad lightly. "What's become of them, the dear fellows? I'd forgotten all about them." "Well may you ask," said the Rat reproachfully. "While you were riding about the country in expensive motor cars and galloping proudly on blood horses and breakfasting on the fat of the land, those two poor devoted animals have been camping out in the open in every sort of weather, living very rough by day and lying very hard by night, watching over your house, patrolling your boundaries, keeping a constant eye on the stoats and the weasels, scheming, planning and contriving how to get your property back for you. You don't deserve to have such true and loyal friends, Toad. You don't, really. Some day, when it's too late, you'll be sorry you didn't value them more whilst you had them." "I am an ungrateful beast, I know," sobbed Toad, shedding bitter tears. "Let me go out and find them out into the cold, dark night and share their hardships and try and prove by... Hold on a bit. Surely I heard the chink of dishes on a tray. Supper's here at last. Come on, Ratty." The Rat remembered that poor Toad had been on prison fare for a considerable time, and that large allowances had therefore to be made. He followed him to the table accordingly, and hospitably encouraged him in his gallant efforts to make up for past privations. They had just finished their meal and resumed their armchairs when there came a heavy knock at the door. Toad was nervous, but the Rat, nodding mysteriously at him, went straight up to the door and opened it, and in walked Mr. Badger. He had all the appearance of one who for some nights had been kept away from home and all its little comforts and conveniences. His shoes were covered with mud, and he was looking very rough and tousled, but then he had never been a very smart man. The Badger, at the best of times, he came solemnly up to Toad, shook him by the paw, and said, "Welcome home, Toad. Alas, what am I saying? Home, indeed. This is a poor homecoming. Unhappy Toad." Then he turned his back on him, sat down to the table, drew his chair up, and helped himself to a large slice of cold pie. Toad was quite alarmed by this very serious and pretentious style of greeting, but the Rat whispered to him, "Never mind, don't take any notice and don't say anything to him just yet. He's always rather low and despondent when he's wanting his victuals. In half an hour's time he'll be quite the different animal." So they waited in silence, and presently there came another and a lighter knock. The rat, with a nod to Toad, went to the door and ushered in the mole, very shabby and unwashed, with bits of hay and straw sticking in his fur. "Oh, hooray, here's Mr. Toad," cried the mole, his face beaming. "Fancy having you back again." And he began to dance around him. "We never dreamt that you would turn up so soon. Why, you must have managed to escape, you clever, ingenious, intelligent Toad." The rat, alarmed, pulled him by the elbow, but it was too late. Toad was puffing and swelling already. Well, there you go. Halfway through chapter 11, we'll leave it there. What I might try and do, and might is underlined in bold and italics and red and highlighted. What I might try and do is do 2 episodes tomorrow, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, just because I missed one a couple of days ago, didn't I? So yeah, that's what we'll try and do. Now, there's been a little bit of discussion on the Discord. Yes, there is a Mr. S Discord. And because it wasn't put as a comment on here, I won't go into too much detail with names and stuff like that and info. But what I will say and what I will address is, how do you feel about the portrayal of Mr. Toad? Do you think, like Ratty said to him, "You are an ass, Mr. Toad"? Or do you feel as if you are kind of positively drawn to Mr. Toad and just think, well, he's got an interest, hasn't he? And once you have an interest, that's how certain minds work, isn't it? Once you have an interest, you are there. You are in that 100%. Take one of my own sons, for example, Bo, and actually Blake. As soon as they are interested in something new, that is it. All of their energies go to that, almost like they're obsessed, possessed even. Like Blake, he liked, I can't even remember what the program was that he liked, but he liked something. And there he was finding out about all of the actors, drawing pictures of the characters. I think he even learned the theme tune to the program on his guitar. And same with Bo. As soon as Bo finds something new, that is it. 100% in it. That is it. That's all that matters. Nothing else, friendships or otherwise, matter. Mr. Toad is like that, isn't he? Boop, boop. That's it. But that's just the way that he's built. So, are you drawn to Toad? Or do you think, oh, Toad, you ass? Let me know down below. That could be my strapline, couldn't it? Let me know down below. Right, okay. It's pouring with rain here today. You can't see it anymore because I use the old background. Apart from every so often, you can see my on air sign behind my head. Can you see it? I'll get it so you can see what it is. It's that. It's on the shelf up here above my head. And every so often, you can just see it sitting. Look. I don't know why that is. But yeah, it's pouring with rain here. And I've got to go and sort some tea time out. It is, what is it? Oh, it's only 4:45 p.m. That's okay, isn't it? It's just mega dark. And I think because it's raining, it's even darker. I don't know. So, look out tomorrow, UK time tomorrow, for 2 episodes. I'll try and do them in the morning. Try and do one in the morning, one in the afternoon. All right, so look out for that. I can't remember what number we're on. Is this one 21? I'm going to say it's 21. I am just going to have a quick little gander at my list. Let's see. Yes, so this episode is 21. All right, so please take note because I don't want you to go and miss any bits. All right, take note of where we are. Anyway, I look forward to your comments underneath. All right, love you lots, and I'll see you soon.